back to the Geek Speak radio show.
One of the most important things in your life.
On TalkZone.com.
Let's take a walk on the wild side.
Here's Henry and Romo.
Well, just Henry for right now. Romo's somewhere in the studio. I'm talking to Nicholas Meyer, director, writer, author now. The book is called The View from the Bridge, Memories of Star Trek and a Life in Hollywood. Very good book. I have it right here in my hands. Very good book, as I said. Not only for Star Trek fans, but also if you just want to know about Hollywood in general. A great book to read. Nicholas, you there?
Yep.
There you are. So let's get into Star Trek now. Very well known, because you've said in many interviews, very well known that you had no knowledge of Star Trek. So I'm not going to ask you, what did you know about Star Trek when you came into it? But as you started working on Star Trek 2 in the movie with the original cast, William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and everyone, what was the point when you got Star Trek? Whether it's Gene Roddenberry's philosophy behind it, or just you got exactly what you had gotten yourself into?
Well, when they started to show me episodes, and I watched them, and then I watched the first movie, and it was the first time I'd ever concentrated on it, because before, if I would see it on TV, I just sort of kept pushing the button. And I was watching it, and I thought, this reminds me of something that I really, really like. And it took me a while to remember or realize or recognize what it was. It was a series of novels that I read as a teenager by an English writer named C.S. Forrester. And these novels concerned an English Navy captain during the Napoleonic Wars by the name of Horatio Hornblower. And it seemed to me that Star Trek was sort of the adventures of Captain Hornblower in outer space. And once I glommed onto that, more than any philosophical insights, I said, oh, I understand how to do this movie. It's okay. This is okay. And so armed with that insight, I thought, okay, Captain Hornblower in outer space. And I was raring to go.
Yeah, a lot of fans who love this movie, as I said, we talk a lot, and one of the things we always say is that you really captured the spirit of the original series. Was that on accident, or did you try to capture it?
To some degree, it was an accident, unless one allows that the spirit, as you call it, of the original series was in fact not dissimilar, not unanalogous to the Hornblower books. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that that's really true. But part of it is also sort of artistic intuition. And also, I think I was also helped by my producer, Harv Bennett, who had never produced Star Trek before, but had done an awful lot of television, Mod Squad and the $6 Million Man and so forth. And he had a very analytical mind, and he sort of looked at the crew of the Enterprise and said, well, it's really sort of Kirk at the top of the pyramid, and then there's sort of Spock and Bones making the troika that is sort of central to the whole thing, and Spock presumably as the intellectual half, and Bones as the, bleeding heart liberal component. And once I got that sort of trinity, that was also a big help in sort of organizing what I was writing and who had to be and do what.
Star Trek 2 you originally called it The Undiscovered Country. What ended up on the screen, was that the same thing, or was it a different story completely?
Oh, no, it was exactly the same story. The Undiscovered Country, as I'm sure your listeners are aware, is part of Hamlet's to be or not to be soliloquy. And the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler ever returns, is death. And since this movie was to be about the death of Spock, calling it the undiscovered country seemed a particularly apt idea.
Okay. So whose idea was it to change to the Wrath of Khan? Paramount?
I was in the middle of directing the movie and editing the movie at night when my assistant said, I think they're changing the name of the movie. And I said, how can that be? And it turned out that a gentleman, executive at Paramount, who was then on the East Coast by the name of Frank Mancuso, decided that he didn't like the undiscovered country and decided to call it The Vengeance of Khan. And I got on the phone with him, and I said, how come you're doing this? Have you seen the movie? No. Have you read the screenplay? No. Well, don't you think it would be courteous to touch base with the writer-director of the film? Mr. Meyer, I'm only trying to do what's best for your movie, says he. And I said, well, are you aware that George Lucas is now making a movie called The Revenge of the Jedi? And don't you do business with Mr. Lucas over the Indiana Jones franchise? Do you think he's going to be pleased with The Vengeance of Khan? And he assured me that this would not be a problem. And then 3 weeks later, or maybe less, I suddenly found the movie had another name change. And we were the Wrath of Khan. And I remember Barry Diller, who ran the studio, sort of yelling at me and said, who the heck came up with this Wrath idea? No one knows what that means. And I said, you're talking to the wrong guy.
Right, and ironically, George Lucas also changed the title of his movie to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, he must have thought about it one night while falling asleep and realizing that the Jedi didn't take vengeance.
Right. Yeah, and another question I want to ask you is, when you were filming Star Trek VI, the Undiscovered Country, what was the mood like on set on the last day of filming? Because it turned out to be the original crew's final time together on film, at least. What was the mood on set that day?
It was very confused and confusing. People suddenly didn't want to say certain lines that were in the script, and there was a lot of consultation, and it was, I think, everybody was slightly edgy. They didn't, everybody knew this was the end of the series with the sort of Coke classic cast. And they were very, very ambivalent, and the form that it took was, sort of quibbling over little things and saying, no, I don't think so, and somehow we sort of fumbled through it. And then there was a wrap party, and the wrap party was, again, this mixture of sort of hilarity and relief that comes when you're finished shooting any movie, but a real melancholy for these actors for whom this had been a major, major part of their professional lives, and in some way, arguably spilled over into their personal lives as well. So it was a very mixed bag that day.
Was it your idea or the studios to have their autographs at the end?
I don't remember.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, there.
No, I remember what they do. I just don't remember whose idea it was.
Oh, okay. Okay, so before I let you go, a couple of more questions. J.J. Abrams, you know him well. He rebooted the franchise last year. Mm-hmm. What did you think of his version?
Well, there were some parts that I absolutely loved. And then there were other parts I didn't quite understand, but then I'm just too dumb.
And I've also read some of the interviews, and we happen to agree on some of today's movies, not Star Trek movies, but just movies in general. Do you think this 3D is the game changer that James Cameron claims it is, or is it just a passing fad?
I think the latter. I think that, well, here's a real complicated answer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I think that all great artistic media, literature, music, painting, all succeed because of what they leave out. Paintings don't move. Music has no intellectual content. I'm speaking of music without singing. I'm talking about an orchestra or a piano.
Right.
It is purely sound. Words are just symbols on a page. In each case, it is the reader, the audience, the viewer, the auditor, whatever you want to call it, who lends his imagination. The painting moves when it meets your eye. The music becomes profound when it reaches your heart or your ear. Up until then, it's just catgut and tubing. Words, as I say, are just, coded symbols that you've got to decipher. Movies are a little bit different from the sort of the old artistic media, and that is that they have the capacity to do everything for you. And that's not always a very helpful thing for art. It tends to put people to sleep. And I could make the argument that movies, when they were silent, were actually leaving something out. When they were black and white, they're leaving something out. And what they left out was what draws you in or drew you in. When you look at Chaplin or Buster Keaton or Abel Gance, you are so far more into the movie than you are when they keep filling in the blanks for you. Here's the color, here's the sound, and now here's the 3D or the CGI. And the more stuff they do for you, the less you have to do. And the less you have to do, the less involved and engaged you are in the finished film. And my guess is that once the novelty of 3D plays itself out, it is unlikely to become a staple of the whole movie-going experience. I could be wrong. That is a very long-winded answer.
Very good answer, and I hope you are right, because all of us here on the show staff here, and a lot of emails and calls that we get, they don't like the 3D thing. They just want it to stop already. So, Nicholas Meyer, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, they're just trying to find a way to lift people out of their seats at home and get them into theaters, and I don't blame them for that, because I think it's more fun to go to a movie and have popcorn and sit with a bunch of people that you don't know and share an experience that is at once a group civilized experience and also a highly personal one at the same time, rather than stay home and have the phone ring and the kids cry and whatever. And, art is a very fragile experience, and you don't want it to be interrupted, which is why I like that theatrical experience, which is why I wish people, didn't have TVs in their home or computers to watch things on or their telephones to look at Lawrence of Arabia. Sounds like a bad idea to me.
Right. And like I said, Nicholas Meyer, who's the writer, director, author. The book is called The View from the Bridge, Memories of Star Trek and Life in Hollywood. The link is on geekspeakradioshow.com. Nicholas, thanks a lot for coming on and spending a few minutes with us on the Geek Speak Radio Show.
I was very pleased to be asked. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good one.
Bye-bye.